I am not the same man you found that day. The monster you've created has returned to kill you.
You have no idea what a true monster is, Kratos. Your final lesson is at hand.
Many people are familiar with Kratos and his boy from God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, but Kratos wasn't always this loving father figure. Before he was a god, Kratos was just a man, but how did he get to that point? Today, we're revisiting one of the greatest action-adventure games of all time, God of War 1. As a fan of the franchise, I have fond memories of playing this when I was a kid, but does it still hold up after all these years? The gameplay mechanics, graphics, and storyline were groundbreaking at the time, but how do they hold up a decade and a half later? I'll be replaying this classic, watching all the cutscenes, critiquing the story, and examining the gameplay to ultimately answer the question, God of War 1, was it any good?
God of War is a game that anyone can pick up and play and have a really fun experience.
You should play God of War because it'll get you laid.
This is the adventure that the back of the box has always promised you.
God of War is fucking rad.
Released in 2005 on the PlayStation 2 and later remastered on the PS3, God of War introduced players to the tormented Spartan warrior Kratos. In a tale woven with tragedy and vengeance, Kratos embarks on a perilous quest across ancient Greece, battling mythical creatures, solving intricate puzzles, and challenging the very gods themselves. God of War combined relentless action, cinematic storytelling, and visceral gameplay, creating an experience like no other. The game's dynamic combat system allowed players to unleash devastating combos, decimate hordes of enemies, and engage in epic boss battles that left jaws dropping. At the heart of God of War's gameplay were the Blades of Chaos, twin blades forged from the fires of Hades bound to Kratos' arms. With these deadly weapons, he carves his way through enemies, slicing and dicing with brutal precision. But God of War wasn't just about raw power and frenetic combat. It also showcased a rich and immersive world, meticulously designed to reflect the grandeur and brutality of Greek mythology. From the haunting depths of the underworld to the towering heights of Mount Olympus, players were transported to awe-inspiring locations brought to life with breathtaking detail at the time. What set God of War apart was its gripping narrative, delving into Kratos' tragic past and events that shaped him. As players guide him on a path of vengeance, they unravel the layers of Kratos' complex character, making for a deeply compelling and emotional journey. God of War quickly made a name for itself, especially once it was shown at E3 2004 along with a demo that players could try. Too bad E3 is gone nowadays. It received numerous awards for its gameplay, storytelling, and technical achievements, leaving its mark on the gaming landscape. Its success led to a beloved franchise that continues to captivate audiences to this day, like the God of War reboot in 2018 and God of War Ragnarok, which, in my opinion, is a masterpiece of a game and storytelling. God of War 1 was a triumph of Greek mythology, delivering an unforgettable gaming experience that set the stage for an epic adventure to follow. So, if you haven't experienced the origin of Kratos' Odyssey, prepare to enter a world of gods and monsters where the fate of a warrior hangs in the balance. Welcome to God of War. Before we embark on Kratos' quest for revenge, let's rewind time to the early 2000s when the gaming industry was experiencing a renaissance. It was a period ripe with opportunity for developers willing to take bold risks, and one such visionary was David Jaffe, known for his work on the Twisted Metal series, had an idea that would revolutionize the action-adventure genre, a story set in Greek mythology featuring an anti-hero seeking vengeance against the gods themselves.
There were so many ready-made play mechanics and gameplay mechanics in the Greek myths already that it was just like Medusa's head and Zeus's thunderbolts and battling Cyclopses, and that mixed with just my love of the material was like, okay, this is what we got to do. We got to do this game.
The stage was set, and with Jaffe at the helm, a team of talented individuals at Santa Monica Studio began to bring this ambitious vision to life. However, the path to creating a masterpiece was fraught with challenges.
Yeah.
God of War is our attempt to really elevate the action-adventure genre to the next level. We wanted to bring combat, exploration, navigation, puzzle solving, all of sort of the classic elements of the genre, but we wanted to bring those to players in a fresh way, in a way that they haven't really seen before, and also at a scope and at a level and sort of this epic feel that they haven't really gotten before in a game.
The team faced numerous hurdles during development, from technical limitations to resource constraints, but they persevered, pushing the boundaries of what was possible on the PlayStation 2 hardware. One of the defining aspects of God of War was its combat system. The team strived to create a seamless blend of visceral combat mechanics using Kratos' signature Blades of Chaos to deliver an exhilarating experience for players. Crafting such a complex combat system was no small feat, but the team's dedication paid off, resulting in a gameplay experience that would leave players yearning for more. And they would get more. A lot more, in fact. They went on to make God of War 2 and 3, which are direct sequels, Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta on the PSP, as well as Ascension on the PS3, all of which were prequels, and eventually the Nordic reboot in 2018 and its sequel Ragnarok, which is one of my favorite games of all time. Seriously, if you haven't played it yet, what are you waiting for? Go play it! The developers realized that to fully immerse players in this mythological world, the game needed breathtaking visuals. They painstakingly designed each environment, from the grand halls of Olympus to the treacherous depths of the underworld.
You know, it's to go from really dark, depressing feelings where you feel like, I just want to get out of here, to you know, very bright, and you're in the desert, and it's to make you feel like, wow, okay, it's a vast world. You know, it's really big world out there.
The dedication to detail extended to character design as well, with Kratos himself becoming an iconic figure in gaming history.
The things I said to him, I said brutal, nasty, violent, antisocial, pissed off, angry, fuck you. That was my direction to Charlie.
The hardest part about making Kratos was that the storyline wasn't really there yet. And so I was trying to create a character that didn't have that story behind him yet.
I just said, come into work and get angry and see what happens.
With the gameplay mechanics, stunning visuals, and a captivating story falling into place, God of War was poised to redefine the action-adventure genre. As for the gameplay, God of War 1 introduced a combat system that was as brutal as it was empowering. It made players feel like a true Spartan warrior. The seamless integration of combat mechanics with the game's narrative propelled it to the forefront of gaming excellence. Kratos' iconic weapon, the Blades of Chaos, became an extension of the player's fury. Its dual blades allowed for swift and devastating combos, empowering players to decimate enemies with ease. The combat system in God of War resonated with players on multiple levels. It offered a sense of fluidity, allowing for seamless transitions between different moves and attacks. Players quickly discovered the joy of unleashing impressive combo chains, chaining together strikes, grabs, and devastating finishing moves to annihilate foes in a creative and satisfying way. You can also use magic in this game. The first one you get is Poseidon's Rage, which is a devastating AoE attack that damages everyone around you. There are also other magical abilities that become available as you progress through the game, such as Medusa's Gaze, which turns enemies into stone temporarily, and Zeus's Fury, which sends out bolts of lightning to strike enemies from afar. While the combat system was widely praised, it wasn't without its criticisms. Some players found the combat to be repetitive, lacking variety in enemy encounters and movesets. There are also a small amount of collectibles in the form of Gorgon Eyes and Phoenix Feathers, which, when you collect enough, you get an upgrade to either your health or mana. They are hidden very well and are well worth finding. Another point of contention was the game's reliance on QuickTime events, or QTEs, during boss battles and cinematic sequences. While some players appreciated the cinematic flair, others felt it disrupted the flow of gameplay. Despite these criticisms, the combat system in God of War revolutionized the action-adventure genre and set a high bar for future titles. Its fast-paced, visceral nature, along with the seamless integration of combos and environmental attacks, left an indelible mark on players. While it had its flaws, it delivered an unforgettable experience, allowing players to channel their inner warrior and unleash their wrath upon the gods themselves. Now for the story. There will be spoilers, so beware. Our story begins with Kratos, a Spartan warrior plagued by his past and haunted by the nightmares of his sins. He serves the gods of Olympus, particularly the god of war himself, Ares, and in a desperate plea for release from his torment, Kratos embarks on a perilous quest to find Pandora's box, a mythical artifact capable of defeating Ares. Kratos is a warrior who serves the Greek gods of Olympus. Flashbacks reveal that he was once a successful but bloodthirsty captain in the Spartan army and led his men on several victories before being defeated by a barbarian king. Facing death, Kratos called upon the god of war Ares, whom he promised to serve if the god of war would spare his men and provide the power to destroy their enemies.
Ares!
The sky split apart, and the god of war stepped through. Descending from Olympus, he saw the makings of a god in a mere mortal. Ares would save Kratos. He would turn him into the perfect warrior, his servant on Earth.
Ares accepted his plea and gifted him the Blades of Chaos, a pair of chained blades forged in the depths of Tartarus. Kratos, equipped with the blades, then decapitated the barbarian king. Kratos then waged war on the behalf of Ares and eventually led an attack on a village occupied by worshippers of Athena. But, unknown to Kratos, Ares had secretly transported Kratos' wife and daughter to the village, and in a blind rage, Kratos struck them down along with the rest of the villagers. The oracle of the village warned him what was to come and cursed Kratos by binding the ashes of his dead family to his body, making his skin appear a pale white, and earned him the nickname Ghost of Sparta, which is the name of another game in the series I hope to replay one day. Ares hoped this would make him the perfect warrior with nothing left to lose, but it only angered him. Kratos renounced his pledge to the god of war and swore vengeance upon him, which leads us to the intro of the game. We start off on a ship being attacked by hydras and skeletons, and we're thrown straight into the action as the game introduces us to the controls. Square for light attack, triangle for heavy attack, press X to jump and again to double jump, use circle to grab enemies, and you can also block using L1 and dodge using the right analog stick. You can also combo light and heavy attacks, and you'll learn more combos as you level up using red orbs, which are mainly dropped from enemies and found in chests. It does take a very long time to actually use the orbs though. You have to hold down X while it spends all the orbs. Luckily they made it faster in later entries. Not long after, we are thrown into our very first boss fight of the game against the Hydra, which acts as a tutorial. This is a great spot to practice your dodging and blocking. We are also introduced to our first of many QuickTime events, or QTEs for short. God of War 1 helped popularize the use of QTEs in video games. They are interactive sequences where you must press specific buttons within a limited time frame to progress through cinematic moments or execute specific attacks during combat. They usually show up during intense combat encounters and boss battles, and you can initiate it when you see a circle above the enemy's head. While these were interesting mechanics at the time, they don't really have a place in modern games anymore, which is probably for the best. God of War is not only an action game, but it's also a bit of a platformer, like a lot of the games were back in the PS2 era. After the first fight with the Hydra, we encounter our first platforming section where we have to balance on the wood. There's a lot of these sections and actually requires you to pay attention. They intentionally put the cameras in awkward positions to make it harder. It's easy to fall off, but you can jump right back up if you're quick. After that, we find the captain's door, which we need to go through, but it's locked and the captain of the ship has the key, so now we have to find him. A little deeper into the ship, we meet with Poseidon, and he tells us to defeat the Hydra attacking the ship, and he gives us his power, which is the first magic ability we get, called Poseidon's Rage. It deals massive AoE damage at the cost of your mana. I like how when you get a new magic or weapons, God of War immediately gives you a ton of enemies to practice using it on. This is something they continue in later games. We make our way out of Poseidon's little room, just in time to find the captain and watch him get eaten by the Hydra. The entire God of War series is renowned for its big and epic boss battles, and that started here in the very first game. They often feature colossal and imposing bosses, including mythical creatures, gods, and other iconic figures from Greek and Norse mythology, and this first boss fight is no different. The cinematic introducing the Hydras is just brutal. We have to fight the Hydra King along with two of its smaller Hydras. You start off with defeating the 2 smaller ones by knocking them out, and then you initiate the QTE to impale them. After that, you can climb up to the King Hydra and take it on mano a mano. Kind of the same thing here, but you have less space, and he regenerates health at first until you're able to grab it and impale it in yet another QTE sequence. We defeat the boss, and remember that captain at 8? Well, he had the key, so we need to go inside of the beast's mouth to find him, and we see him hanging on for dear life. The captain thanks Kratos for coming back to save him, and Kratos, being the nobleman he is, he takes the key and tells the captain,
I didn't come back for you.
If you ever played God of War Ragnarok, you may recognize this guy. You encounter a journal entry mentioning this encounter, and Kratos regrets robbing this man of his freedom. It's kind of a funny reference that they kept it in the lore after all these years. You also run into him later in the game in the underworld, and Kratos does him wrong again.
Boss, I will see it completed.
You again?
We go back to the locked door, use the key, and we get the first glimpse into Kratos' past as he talks to Athena. Kratos is tormented every day about his past, and he wants nothing more than the pain to go away. Athena tells him they will forgive him of all of his nightmares if he does one final task for the gods, to kill Ares, the current god of war who is laying siege to Athens.
And if I am able to do this, to kill a god, then the visions, they will end?
Complete this final task, and the past that consumes you will be forgiven.
Remember these words, forgive him, it will be relevant later. And so Kratos begins his journey.
Kratos set sail once more.
After speaking to Athena, we set sail to the ancient city of Athens to find the Oracle and are greeted by 2 beautiful women Kratos was Netflix and chilling with. We need to find the Oracle to learn how to defeat Ares and save Athens, although Kratos only cares about the first part. We fight some notable new creatures such as the Minotaur and the Cyclops. Each of these formidable foes have a lot of health, and you can activate a QTE on them to execute them, and it looks badass. They did a great job with these animations. There are also Medusas you fight, and they can turn you into stone. These were a bit annoying to fight because they move around so much, but after defeating it, Aphrodite, the goddess of love, rewards us with Medusa's magic to use for ourselves. This is a very powerful ability, and it's useful versus tougher enemies to turn them into stone and shatter them. Here we complete our first upgrade on the Blades of Chaos using red orbs. We learn a new ability called Rage of the Gods, which is basically Super Saiyan mode. You have to charge the meter up to use it by defeating enemies, and when you use it, your damage skyrockets for a limited time until the meter runs out. This is a staple in all the God of War games, and it's very useful versus bosses or big groups of tough enemies. We also learned a new combo where you can press L1 plus X to do a powerful attack, and also a charge by pressing R1. We make our way through some more platforming sections in combat until we reach this area where we can see Ares in action, destroying the city of Athens. I love this view. It shows just how powerful and large Ares actually is, and gives you a glimpse of what is to come. Not far after that, we reach another one of these god holographs, and this time it's Zeus who gives us the magic to throw lightning bolts at our enemies, so we finally have a range attack. We immediately have to use this to progress into the next section of the game by taking out this guy who lowered the bridge. After that, we run into the Oracle of Athens, and she gets grabbed by some monsters, so now we have to go save her. We fight through some more monsters and meet this creepy gravedigger dude who tells us not to die before he's done digging this grave, whatever that means. Anyways, we move on and solve some more puzzles where you have to put this pillar on top of the other one so you can jump across and reach the Oracle. This one really made me think because the pillars you have to grab aren't anywhere near where you have to jump. They're all the way in the beginning of the area, so you have to go back and use the elevator, then stack them on top of each other and move them all the way back to the other side of the area. Anyways, we save the Oracle, but she tells us we're too late to save Athens, and we get another flashback of Kratos' past as she reads his mind. She sees how Kratos was a brutal Spartan commander and how he slaughtered his own family. She reveals the only way he can defeat Ares is by using the power inside of Pandora's box, which is hidden in the desert far to the east, which also makes that our next destination. We rendezvous with Athena in the desert, and she tells us Pandora's box is the most powerful weapon a mortal can wield. She said it's hidden well, and to find it, we must follow the Song of the Sirens, which will ultimately lead us to the Titan Kronos. Kronos is the last living Titan, and his son Zeus condemned him to walk the desert for eternity with Pandora's temple chained to his back. So we find and defeat the 3 sirens, and make our way to the newly opened temple. In there we find a horn, and Kratos goes full Moses and parts the sea of sand in 2. Which then leads us to a second horn, and we use this one to call upon Kronos, who we can see walking in the background. Poor guy, that would suck having to do that. I really love the giant titans and the bosses they show you in this game. This kind of stuff always made me so interested in Greek mythology when I played it as a kid. We climb onto Kronos and arrive at the entrance to Pandora's temple, a massive maze we must make our way through. Kratos faces many obstacles on his ascent, including perilous traps, vicious enemies, and even the wrath of the gods themselves. But he persists, driven by his thirst for vengeance against Ares. We wind up in this giant circular puzzle that you can move around, and we meet yet another god who gives us an upgrade, this time a new weapon. This was my favorite weapon to use. It was a powerful sword, the Blade of Artemis, the very sword she used to slay a titan. I like how as you upgrade it, it gets more and more fiery and changes colors. This goes for the Blades of Chaos as well, but the fully upgraded sword was the best looking. You can use the same combos as the Blade of Chaos, but it does its own unique attacks. For instance, if you press L1 plus square, you do a whirlwind that hits everyone around you for massive damage. We complete more and more puzzles and defeat more monsters as we progress through the temple, and we come across a puzzle where we have to sacrifice an innocent soldier. Similar to the captain earlier, he thinks we're here to save him.
Get me out of here! What are you waiting for? Let me out! We can find our way back to Athens.
The gods demand sacrifice. From all of us.
Oh, please. No. No.
This part was just brutal. We had to fight these skeletons as the dude begs for his life. Anyways, we place him on this platform and pull this lever and he gets fried, which allows us to move on. This room leads us to the Trident of Poseidon, which allows us to breathe underwater and swim, and we can now access previously blocked off areas. We encounter a new enemy type here, the 3-headed Cerberus. I think they did a great job on the design of these. It looks great and they are tough. We swim through the water and make our way back to the circular puzzle room, which now leads us to a new area filled with these giant fiery boulders rolling towards us. You gotta dodge these carefully while opening up the doors to find the correct way. I got hit a lot and nearly died, but eventually found the right door. Here we have to do more platforming, and this is probably the hardest platforming of the game. You have to dodge these spinning contraptions or else they'll knock you off and you have to restart. It's pretty long and you can't really see where you're going due to the camera angle. I'll admit, I died here quite a few times. And to top it off, they have alternative paths with chests, so every time you restart, you have to grab those again, making it a little more tense. This had my hands sweating by the time I made it to the end. And at the end, Kratos turns the wheel, which opens the gate for the next boss we have to fight. The 20-foot tall undead Minotaur. This boss is a straight up menace. I still remember having trouble with it back in the day when I played this game as a kid, and I had to have my cousin beat it for me. This time, however, I realized how the fight actually works. You have to beat on him until he is stunned, and then run back to him with a log to take out his armor first. Repeat this 3 times, and then his armor is destroyed and he becomes exposed. For this phase, he moves around a lot and attacks very quickly, and again, once he is damaged enough, he becomes stunned. And you have to hit him with the final blow and take him out in epic fashion. We make our way through the new door, and Hades rewards us with our final magic spell, the Army of Hades, which summons the souls of the dead to fight by our side. It's super powerful, but I didn't end up using it all that much because I upgraded the other spells already. We make our way back to the circular puzzle area and open a new path, which leads us to the top of the temple, bringing us one step closer to where Pandora's box is located. After the elevator ride, we get yet another flashback of Kratos' past, this time showing how he prayed for Ares to save his life and got his blades of chaos.
And the god of war stepped through. Descending from Olympus, he saw the makings of a god in a mere mortal. Ares would save Kratos. He would turn him into the perfect warrior, his servant on Earth.
Here, we have to do even more puzzles, and some are just straight up annoying. You have to perform them perfectly, or else you'll fail and have to restart. Take this spiked ground box puzzle for instance. I failed it so many times because you only have so much time to move this box from one side of the room all the way to the other side of the room before the spikes come out of the ground and break your box and kill you. You have to kick it to a perfect spot and then double jump off of it, giving you just enough time to make it over this ledge. After about 10 tries, I finally get it by the skin of my teeth and can progress on with the game. Here we get another flashback. This time it shows Kratos moments before slaughtering his family, talking to the Oracle outside the village he's attacking. The Oracle warns him not to go inside the temple where his family is currently at. He doesn't listen, and we again see the brutality of Kratos and the consequences of his actions.
The glory he had reveled in turned to horror. The image of his two final victims would stay with him for all his days. With that act, Kratos knew he could no longer serve his master. He had but one calling now, the death of Ares. He would murder the god of war.
Ares, you will die for what you did that night.
We regain control of Kratos and make our way through dangerous platforming sections, a conveyor belt full of enemies, and solve some more puzzles until we reach Pandora's box. At last, we finally make it to the end and uncover the mystical box. Athena appears before us and says to bring the box to Athens to use it. But before we can, Ares turns Kratos into a Greek shish kebab with the farthest throw of all time, beating out even Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite.
Depths of Hades for all eternity.
Kratos dies and Ares' minions take the box. He is sent to the underworld of Hades, but thanks to the help of the ship captain earlier, he's able to climb out of hell and live another day. To get out, we first have to get past these death traps. They spin and have giant blades attached to them. I died a few times, but thankfully the game gives you very generous checkpoints here. After that, Hades really makes your life hell because now you have to climb up these rotating spike columns. If you touch any spike, you fall all the way down to the bottom, and there's a long way to the top. This part was tough. I fell so many times, but eventually memorized the pattern and reached the top. Up here we find a rope, and we climb up it to find a path leading to the grave in Athens the creepy old dude was digging earlier. He somehow knew we were going to need it. He said he's a god that's been watching over Kratos, but he doesn't say who he is. Kratos then confronts Ares, takes the box from him, and opens it to become a massive godlike being.
You are still just a mortal. Every bit as weak as the day you begged me to save your life.
I am not the same man you found that day. The monster you've created has returned to kill you.
You have no idea what a true monster is, Kratos. Your final lesson is at hand.
Consumed by fury, Kratos engages in the climactic battle against Ares, fueled by the power of Pandora's box. This was definitely an amazing boss. He is tough, looks badass, and has some gnarly attacks. He has massive weapons and can cast an AoE fire attack, and when his health gets low, he flies in the air and casts meteors at you. And of course, there's a QTE after you defeat him.
the rage of the gods drive your blades, Kratos.
But, like any good last boss, he has a phase 2. This time he takes our magic and weapons away, and Kratos grabs a random sword, and we fight him again. Their clashes shake the very foundations of Olympus as Kratos seeks to rid himself of the nightmares haunting over his existence. Kratos eventually emerges victorious, impaling Ares with the Blade of the Gods and claiming his throne as the new God of War.
Kratos, it was I who saved you in your time of greatest need.
I haven't forgotten, Ares. I remember how you saved me.
That night, I was trying to make you a great warrior.
You succeeded.
Kratos had done me impossible. A mortal defeating a god. Ares was no more.
But the victory comes at a great cost. Kratos becomes a vessel of rage, forever cursed to wear the ashes of his dead family. Athena stuck true to her word and forgave Kratos, but that's not what he wanted. He wanted the nightmares to be gone, but they were never going away. Although the gods forgave Kratos, his sins could never be forgotten. Despite his triumph, his journey leaves him tormented and forever changed. And there you have it, the gripping tale of God of War, a story of vengeance, sacrifice, and the consequences of one man's thirst for power. The game set the stage for an incredible franchise that continues to captivate gamers to this day. So, God of War, was it any good? After playing it again, I'm happy to say that God of War 1 is just as amazing as I remember. The gameplay is smooth, the combat attacks are satisfying, and the boss fights are epic. The story and characters are still strong, with an incredible Greek mythology-inspired world for Kratos to explore and conquer. The Temple of Pandora and her box was a brutal maze that truly felt like a labyrinth hiding a secret. It was very well done. The one criticism I do have about the story though is that Kratos' past is told through flashbacks in bite-sized parts as you progress through the game. So at the start you get part 1 of the story, and a couple hours later you get part 2 and so on. But it works fine for the game in the end because it is relatively short. I beat the entire game in around 7 hours. Compare that to God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, which can take upwards of 50 or even 60 hours to complete all the content. The graphics may not hold up to standards of today's games, but that's to be expected with a game that's over 15 years old. Fortunately, I do own the game physically and was able to emulate the game to achieve higher resolution, and with that, it did make the game feel a lot more modern. However, the cutscenes were still noticeably bad. The puzzles in the game required precise timing and did not allow for error. That was kind of annoying, but it did feel nice to actually fail and get better at the game, which doesn't happen much in modern games. Overall, revisiting God of War 1 was a nostalgic and thrilling experience. If you've never played it before, I highly recommend it. Whether you play it on the original PS2 copy or the remaster on PS3, you're gonna have a good time. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. But for now, on to God of War 2. Have you played any God of War games? Which one's your favorite? Let me know down below in the comments.